On today's show, I sit down with DJ Edwards, the owner of Puh Performance. We were both kind of pressing for time during this conversation, but I think we still covered a lot in 45 minutes. I have a lot more I want to ask him, and I would love to dive deeper into some of the things that we've discussed. I'm going to try and get him on again so that we could all learn more from him. But here's Mr. DJ Edwards.
Welcome to another episode of the Baseball Awakening Podcast, where we dive into the raw, unfiltered, unsexy side of player development. Get ready for some knowledge bombs with your host, Geoff Rottmayer.
Welcome to the Baseball Awakening Podcast. I'm Geoff Rottmayer, and today we are sitting down with DJ Edwards over there at Puh Performance in Inglewood, Colorado. DJ uses his knowledge in corrective exercise, flexibility limitation, and biomechanics to help his athletes get better. He works with a handful of big leaguers and over hundreds of baseball players across all levels, all over the nation. A knowledgeable guy. You can find him on Twitter at DJ_Edward9, as well as on Instagram at DJ_Edward9. Be sure to give him a follow. So, Mr. DJ Edwards, how are you, sir?
Well,
great. You know, I appreciate you coming on. I know you're really busy right now in Arizona, and you're doing some really cool stuff. So I really appreciate your time. So, you are in the strength and conditioning industry, specializing in the baseball side of things. So let's start with the how and the why you got started into the baseball strength and conditioning world.
Yeah, so I started with strength and conditioning as, in college. I got a degree in exercise science, and, I was entering college at 155 pounds. So I was noticing that my lack of strength was, taking a big toll on the game that I was trying to play. And, I wanted to serve the underserved population of baseball versus just getting a football program handed to me versus, actually having to apply to the sport itself. So, saw a big, market goal in that in the state of Colorado, even in Arizona now, for baseball specific strength and conditioning, even though we do basic movement patterns, but our arm pairs, our different systems apply to the baseball and allow us to transfer the field a little bit more.
Awesome. So whenever we talk about baseball, what are the things that you've learned that are different from, let's say football players? How are they different, and why does the baseball player need something a bit more specific?
Yeah, I mean, just the consciousness of, the risk and reward of elbow, wrist, shoulder, all that kind of stuff in the weight room. And baseball is such an asymmetrical sport where, you're rotational the same direction over and over and over. So you build a lot of deficiencies that way. So it's more of a rotary sport in that aspect. Well, football is more of a power, development, hit hard sport. Getting big, getting fast, getting strong is great in any sport, but there's got to be a reason to the rhyme with that.
Absolutely. Listen, can you take us through some of your programming, if that's okay?
Okay.
Let's start with off season. What should one focus be during the off season when it comes to strength?
Yeah. So day one, after the season, our guys will come in, get their assessment done, and then probably get their lift in. So everything we do is customized to the athlete. So everybody's on their own 100% custom program based off the initial assessment. And then that assessment will touch base on static and dynamic movements, hips, shoulders, neck, elbows, wrists, all those kind of things. Our first couple of weeks are kind of built on regeneration and rebuilding of the strength foundation. And then from there, we'll work on the strength speed continuum, and we'll work absolute strength, strength speed, speed strength, and then just absolute speed when spring training is coming around so we can get guys to peak at the right time.
Awesome. So this assessment process,
Yeah.
can you take us through that and why it's important? What is your main focus when it comes to assessing baseball players?
Yeah. So with the assessment process, we just want to check our boxes. If you're not assessing, you're guessing. I believe Greg Cook said that, and I totally believe that each guy should start with a blank canvas. Not all two people move the same, so not all both those guys don't need the same program. So within that assessment, we're going to test infrasternal angle, which is the rib cage positioning, where the diaphragm is, and then we'll look at the hips, the shoulders, the toe touch progression, some T-spine rotation, extension, flexion, ankle mobility, overhead squat, a push-up test. Maybe we'll add some velocity-based training inside of the assessments for some of our seasoned guys that have been trained with us for a while. So it just kind of depends. Our assessments kind of go down some rabbit holes, but we'll gather as much information from the team PT if possible. Gather as much information, injury history from the athlete themselves. And then we'll have our physical therapist look at the movement patterns of what he sees, all that kind of stuff. And then we'll all build kind of a big integrated program to address those deficiencies, goals, needs, and strength as well.
Nice. So for the baseball population, what is the most common finding?
Oh man, you usually can just see how they by the way they walk in the room that they're a baseball player. A lot of times they're right-handed thrower, their right clavicle, right scapula be depressed, and they'll be stuck in extension. So those are two things that we see: a lot of lack of core stability, improper rotational patterns, and some elbow extension loss or overhead flexion losses. We see a lot of.
Right. Let's talk about that whole shoulder hanging, because you do see that all the time with baseball players. So for the people that are listening, can you kind of explain why that happened and then why it's important to work and try and fix that?
Yeah. So obviously, like I mentioned a little bit ago, baseball is an asymmetrical sport. So we're repeating a pattern over and over again. And I believe a lot of the patterns can be fixed through breathing. So, if they have improper breathing patterns, they're using their secondary respiratory muscles and they're, creating stiffness in their traps, their pecs, their lats, their serratus, all those muscles that their scalene, they shouldn't be breathing through essentially for their primary breathers, and they create poor tissue quality. And then they try and throw repeated patterns or swing repeated patterns with that. That's a big reason why that happens. So, everything happens in the kinetic chain. So we want everything to be, a congruent pattern where we're able to accept force, deliver force, and give force. So we want to, be sure that the kinematic chain is in sequence and everything is posturally aligned. If, your joint placement dictates muscle function. So if the joint is malaligned, we're never going to get maximal output for each muscle, or we're going to increase chance of injury.
Nice. The whole breathing thing is a big thing as they kind of start to learn more about it and the value that there is to breathing properly. So my question is how do you coach this? How do you bring awareness to a guy about their breathing pattern and then retrain the pattern, because a lot of people do not breathe correctly.
Yeah, everybody doesn't breathe right.
Right? Yeah.
So that's where we check the infrasternal angle. So ISA, we kind of determine a breathing pattern there. We got guys that have wide rib cages, narrow rib cages, and the deviated rib cage. You see a lot of deviated rib cage and right-handed throwers. The right side of the rib cage is flared out. So that's going to show us that their scap is going to be kind of sitting awkwardly on that what's called the thorax, or you can say rib cage. So we want to address those deficiencies first and foremost, and that will show what breathing pattern they want. So we want to teach, no matter what we're doing, we want to teach diaphragmatic breathing. But is it going to be in a flex position? Is it going to be in a 90-90 position? Is it going to be in a quadruped position? Is it going to be supine? Is it going to be prone? So it depends on, the breathing depends on the way the rib cage is, the way the athlete moves. Kind of our go-to is a 90-90 position with a pelvic tilt. So we'll take that pelvis, get it to rotate properly, get some hamstrings on, and then get some diaphragmatic breathing while adding a reach or an overhead flexion to the breathing pattern. Depends on what the guy needs.
Nice. So can you explain how a better breathing pattern, how that transferred to the field?
Yeah, first and foremost, it probably is going to help you slow down your heart rate.
Yeah.
You to be in a better position to hit, or on the mound, so where you act like you've been there before, versus a high elevated heart rate where, nice, you're going to kind of make some, bonehead mistake because your heart rate's elevated, swing at a bad pitch, or, spike the ball, grip the ball too tight, whatever it may be. So that's a big portion of it. But on the science side, just getting neutral is going to be the biggest thing for us, how it transfers. Yeah. A lot of time we want guys to get neutral, and a lot of times we don't want guys to get neutral. A lot of times that rib flare or their scap positioning or their extension or something like that will make them, or what allows them to throw 100 miles an hour. So we got to know why we're fixing things, and if it even needs to be fixed, or if it's worth getting fixed, or we just kind of build off of that foundation.
Yeah, nice. So can you use an example for a hitter?
Yeah, absolutely. So anytime you do some diaphragmatic breathing, you're going to decrease tension on the pelvic floor, and you're going to get good static or dynamic posture in the pelvis. And if the pelvis is anteriorly rotated or posteriorly rotated, whatever direction, it's going to kill rotation. So extension kills rotation. We want to get as neutral as possible inside the body. So if he is stuck in major extension, we see a lot of pars fractures in the athlete rotating against that rotation, using the spine a lot more versus the pelvis a lot more. So we want to see rotation through the pelvis versus the knees, the ankles, or the back. So you're going to get rotation through those secondarily, but primarily you want to get that rotation through those hips.
Yeah, this is good stuff, man. So let's progress through the off season. What's the time frame typically for your pro guys?
That's going to be probably either early to mid September with our minor league guys, to late January, early February. Or with our big league guys, will be about right now. Some guys will start trickling into late January before they report to their affiliate.
Yeah.
So it kind of depends on the guy. Some guys don't report till third week in March, halfway through spring training, if they're in the AZL or GCL or whatever it may be.
Okay, so about 4, 5, 6 months.
Yep.
At what point do you transition from the recovery regeneration phase that you were talking about earlier into, you know what? Let me ask this first. Talk a little bit more about that phase. What does the recovery and regeneration phase, what does that entail?
Yeah, we're going to just essentially get the athletes moving better that phase. We're going to add some loads, some light loads to them, probably correct some deficiencies. So if we see like that, let's say example, since we've already mentioned it, the press scap or downwardly clavicle or whatever it may be, we won't deadlift the guy just because you're going to yank on that lat and pull it down even more. So we'll fix that, and then that way, when their strength phase comes, that we're able to hit, a trap bar deadlift or sumo deadlift or whatever it may be, whatever's programmed for them, we're all right, we feel comfortable that he's not an extension, he's not going to mess up his back, his rib cage flares better, so just correcting those exercises, all those deficiencies through cleaner patterns. We'll put them on one foot a lot. We'll do some deceleration stuff. We'll do some landing mechanics. We'll do some core stability, core control stuff. A lot of teaching the body, repatterning the body how to move properly versus being, say, upwardly trap dominant. We want to use more of our serratus, for example, or we want to do this at XYZ and get them to move better in their next phases.
Very nice. And what's the goal? What's the goal for a lot of your guys?
Yeah, it depends. You know, we have some guys that need to gain weight. We got guys that need to lose weight. We got guys that need to get stronger. We got guys that need to be more powerful. We need guys just to stay healthy. You know, guys that are 8 years, 9 years into the big leagues that need to just, you know, stay on the mound, you know.
Yeah.
We got rehab guys. So it just depends on the guy. Every guy has their own needs, their own goals. Like I said earlier, we want to gather as much information from their PTs, their goals, you know, and then what we see to address and build a program. So a lot of the times it's just going to be some basic tempo work, some isometric works, you know, just getting them better positions, feeling those positions and building that strong foundation again.
Yeah, nice. So let me ask this. Is there such thing as getting too strong, or is there such thing as being strong enough?
To a point, but I mean, if a guy wants to go heavy, you know, we're not going to stop him. You know, we do a lot of velocity-based training stuff, so we're kind of targeting the goals with meters per second on the bar versus loading up a ton of weight. We do crush weight in the first phases, with holds and isos and tempos, like I said before. But
yeah,
you know, I think as long as the weight is going to transfer, or the strength is going to transfer to the field, you know, why not continue to get stronger? At some point, you know, is a 600-pound deadlift really going to matter if you're already deadlifting 570 pounds? You know what I mean?
yeah.
So, you know, that's just risk reward, and see how the athlete's moving at the same time. You know, it's as long as they're transferring, as long as their speed numbers are increasing and they're staying healthy, that's the most important thing to us.
Right. So let's say you got a guy that a certain frame. You know, he puts up great numbers comparatively. Is there like a checkpoint or a benchmark on strength versus what their strength should be for their size?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think there's a predetermined strength that we should follow. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We have kind of body fat goals and strength and weight goals, but we don't really have, you know, you need to be deadlifting 400 pounds, you know, to throw 90 miles an hour.
Yeah.
You know, we like to see guys do, you know, 2 times their body weight on deadlifts, 2 times their body weight on reverse lunges, you know, an added weighted chin ups, you know, stuff like that. But there's no like benchmark where we're going to say, all right, you need to hit 500 pounds this week, you know, on your exercises or whatever it may be.
Right. So what about a guy that you got that had a good, strong base? When do you go into the specifics, the sport specific, or is there a such thing of sport specific? And if there is, what does this entail?
Yeah, honestly, our strength program is super basic. We don't really design sport specific movement patterns. We'll throw some med balls. We'll do some med ball slams, some med ball tosses, some arm care. But that's as specific as we're going to get. We're not going to, you know, put a bat in their hand, add a bunch of bands to them, and, you know, add some resistance swings.
Right.
You know, we'll let our hitting guy do that, or let our throwing coordinators do, you know, work on the throwing patterns. You know, we'll communicate with them on, you know, what we see and what we need. But ours, you know, we're in a hinge, we're in a squat, we're gonna do a push, we're gonna do a pull, and you know, we're gonna do some core stability, arm care, and med ball throws. You know, it's not nothing sexy.
Yeah.
You know, but it's how we deliver the program, and it's how the guys, you know, attack the program, and it's just the timing of the changes of the off seasons from, you know, phase to phase. So after the foundational phase, we'll probably bust that out for 4 to 5 weeks, and then we'll go into our strength speed phase where we're adding a little bit more velocity into the bar, where we're going 0.70 meters per second, adding velocity based stuff, adding some hip extension jumps, some landing mechanics, like I said before, into an accelerated pattern or some sprint work. Like today, our pro group back in Colorado is starting with our speed coach doing their conditioning and their running pattern stuff. So we gave them a couple weeks off foot contact, so they're kind of just letting their ankles heal, or letting their knees heal or hips heal, whatever it is, after just being on their feet all for 130 game season, 162 game season. So slowly reintroducing running mechanics and speed work and med ball work and all that stuff back in their program. This is about this time right now. So it's like I said, today is the first day that they'll be doing that.
Nice. So how do you incorporate speed training into the strength training? The strength training, is it the same day or the alternating days, or how does that work?
It depends. A couple guys today will be doing a lift and a speed day. So we like to do a high-low approach, where not like what you've heard of a high-low approach before, but say guys throwing a bullpen that day, we want them to lift that day because after their bullpen, because they're going to allow their body to recover the next day. So if you go bullpen, lifts, and then say long toss and then lifts, you're not going to have any days off. So you need your CNS to recover. You need your body to be able to recover. So you want to manage your time where you're having 2 high intent days or things in one day, and then 0 or low intent days the next day, where, we'll use some speed days will be a recovery day, and then some days will be just a kick your ass day. Or it will be an actual accelerated day or decelerated day where we're actually working on mechanics. So this depends on what the guys need and where they fall. Some guys aren't participating in the speed work today; they're just lifting. So that might be because they just got into town, or it's kind of hard to keep everybody on the same schedule.
Yeah.
But our speed stuff isn't done as a group. We kind of build that camaraderie that way as a group. But all the lifts are done separately at the same time. But we'll have myself and then a couple other coaches with our pro group, and we'll kind of manage them through their program, teach them through their program. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, speed work, Tuesday, Thursday, or even same day sometimes. This really depends on the athlete.
Nice. So on the market right now, there are several different recovery tools that kind of measure, one's recovery process. Do you guys use that? If so, how do you guys use them?
Yeah, it's definitely a big piece. I first and foremost believe that movement is recovery. First and foremost, okay. Increasing blood flow, sleep, nutrition, all that kind of stuff. And that's just, and then the recovery modalities like the hypervolt guns, the soft tissue stuff, the Graston, the needles, whatever it may be, is second to that. Movement is number one. Sleep's number one. Yeah. Nutrition's number one. But then, it's a good time for those, the recovery boots or recovery guns or whatever after that. After you did your movement pattern, after you restored lost range of motion, after you got your good 8 hours of sleep, you drank your 200 ounces of water, whatever it may be, that's where those things come into play.
Yeah, nice. So what about when you got a high school guy, and let's say he comes in and the kid's never been on a program before, he's never even really lifted before. What does his process look like?
So same thing. They're going to show up. They're going to do that same assessment. We treat all the athletes the same, essentially. Their timeline is just going to be a little bit different, just because we'll have, hopefully 4 years with that high school athlete versus 6 months with the pro guy. So we're able to take a little bit more time, build out his program where, he's building a good foundation. A lot of the times the high school kids need just basic strength. And then, later on, even in season, we're still working on basic strength. They're not remotely close to even, thinking about doing absolute speed work or speed strength work or whatever, because they just can't move properly. So,
Yeah.
It's a lot more difficult just to get them to move properly just because of the age, and they're going through puberty and all that kind of stuff, right? So,
Right.
the cool thing is, at that age, they should just be able to look at the weight at the squat rack and be able to gain weight just because their testosterone is so high.
Right.
So if we can teach them, to pattern correctly, get them consistent in the weight room, all that kind of stuff. They're sleeping, they're drinking water, they're doing all that. They're going to see the results right away, just based on where they're at in their life, versus a 27-year-old man who's trying to, get up, increase his velo from, 96, 97 to 98, 99, so he can stay in the big leagues, is a little bit different story, so, that's, the high school group is fun just because we're with them for 4 years straight. We build good relationships with them. We see them, throughout, and then we have, gosh, man, I don't even know now. We have quite a few pro guys that we started with in high school. Yeah. So it's pretty cool to see, where they were and what they're doing and where they're at, how they're moving now, what they did in college or whatever it may be. And, that's just the consistency of from day one, just showing up every day, learning the patterns, taking control of your nutrition, your sleep habits, and all that kind of stuff.
And it's tough to get kids to kind of buy into that. Are your guys consistent with that? Do they, or was this something that they kind of build over time? The whole documenting of and what they're eating and stuff.
What did you say? Sorry, I missed you.
Yeah, getting the nutrition documented and understanding what it all is. Do you guys just kind of get that over time, or what have you kind of seen?
Yeah, I mean, the first day, our welcome email pretty much says, fill out a food log for us, do this, do that. If the athlete can't fill out a 3-day food log, they really don't want it. And that kind of shows us right there.
Nice.
So we're not going to really dump a lot of time into that aspect if the kid can't record what he's eating for 3 days, so we can just basically go over it together. My wife is an RN, and she does all of her nutritional stuff, and it's super basic, and there's nothing sexy about it. It's just, it's with our pro guys, it's staying away from inflammatory foods. With our high school guys, it's more, adding more fats, more proteins in a good way, whole nutrient dense foods versus, chemically based packaged meals or whatever it may be. There's nothing crazy to that. And on the sleep side, we try to get guys on like those Whoop band monitors. Okay. A lot of our pro guys have them. We do that. So we'll monitor that. Some agents will buy those for their guys, which is nice. And we're able to monitor that. So that shows like their HRV stuff and their stress and, sleep patterns and all that kind of stuff. But, on the nutritional side, they got to be committed. They got to show that they're committed right away by just creating that food log, and we'll go over that with them, first week or 2 weeks in. If they don't do that, if they don't deliver that and they're not gaining weight, they'll say, well, where's your food log? And they kind of catch the point where they need to step that up.
Nice. So with the data that you get from the Loop band or, whatever guys are using, do those data, do they drive your approach on what they can and can't do for the day?
To an extent. To an extent, it does. A lot of kids can get, kind of mind blocked with it. If they look at like, oh, my recovery is at 42% today, I can't lift. Like, well, how do you actually feel?
Right.
Then they'll put on the velocity base. They'll put on the GymAware and do some speed work, and their numbers are actually pretty good. So, we look at the movement of the bars, probably the most true readiness score, because, if they're moving weight faster than they did last week or slower than they did last week, we'll see both spectrums. Why are they moving faster or why are they moving slower? And it's either, because they didn't sleep, they slept right, our program's working, our program's not working. They only had, 4 glasses of water, but they had 7 beers, you know what I mean? So
right.
it really just depends on, the monitoring stuff really depends on the athlete and how they're moving. So like our readiness score mainly will be from just the velocity based stuff, or even the jump, like how they're jumping, how they're landing, how they're moving that day, how their body's truly feeling versus reading the monitor.
Right.
We do take that in consideration though, obviously.
Yeah, sure. You know, let's jump into preseason.
Okay.
What does that look like for you guys, and what is the focus?
Yeah, so this is the time we'll start increasing baseball activity.
Okay.
So we're going to go back to decreasing our rotary stuff, like our med ball throws. So anytime we add something, we got to take something away.
Okay.
So we notice the workloads go up in swinging. We notice the workloads go up in hitting. We notice the workloads go up in sprinting, all that kind of stuff. We're at the field more, so we're doing live at bats more often. So obviously we're building a lot more strength work, but we're still keeping that speed work component. So our speeds are going to be moving faster in the weight room, about 0.80 to 1.0 speed of all the bars that they're lifting. So, you know, we want to hopefully by that time have built that foundational phase of strength where we're going to build off that throughout the season and keep them strong, keep them healthy. Some guys like to, you know, blow it out lifting wise still, once a week or, you know, a couple times a month or whatever maybe. But, you know, more often than not, it's going to be a lot more fast, powerful burst movements, less rotary work, more core stability work, increased arm care, increased PT sessions, all that kind of stuff, just making sure they're ready for the season.
Right, and the in season is going to look a lot like that too, right?
Yeah, in season is going to look, the numbers are going to look the exact same. We might decrease sets and reps. We'll take away some eccentric components just so we decrease soreness. You know, so sets and reps will be anywhere from 2 sets to 4 sets. Reps will be anywhere from 3 reps to 5 reps. Nothing too crazy. So it's you know, just making sure they're able to perform on the field every single day versus being too sore to even step foot on the mound.
Yeah. So what and I know your pro guys don't have this problem, but for the young guys, typically they don't really get it. So when it comes to in season, and they tend to think that they don't have the time, or they don't want to work too hard or do too much, or whatever the case may be. You know, can you talk about the importance of in season training after you spent all off season working hard?
I mean, do you want me to be honest with you?
Yeah, I want you to be honest.
I think it starts with the parents.
Yeah.
Truthfully.
Yeah.
I think the parents make excuses for the kids not to get in. They see them get busy with school and practice, and then they have to lift on top of that and all that. And then essentially they're just not preparing their kids for the next level.
Yeah.
You know, and the kids that do train year round, you know, get those scholarships that the kids wanted that stopped training 5 months before that, you know?
Right.
So, you know, you put in what you get what you put in. I truly believe that. You know, not all the time, you know, hard work is rewarded, but most of the time it is. So, you know, I think it starts with the parents first and foremost. You know, they're supporting their kids. They're, you know, if they want their kid to be successful, they'll say, all right, well, you need to manage your time a little bit better. You know, we have kids in the past where they do like a 168-hour work week, where they just write down what they're doing for 168 hours, and they find out they have way more free time than they ever thought. Yeah. And, you know, or their parents just don't want them to lift during season, you know? So, excuses will fly. I mean, that's just how it is. Just excuse after excuse. And we see, you know, unfortunately every facility sees, all my friends see kids stop training in season. It just happens. You know, we'll have consistency is just not there for some kids. They just don't want it. But in all honesty, we need those average people for us to be great. You know what I mean? If they want to be average, and, you know, that allows more space in the world for greatness. So if you attack it like you want to be great, it's going to be a little bit easier path, because the average people are making it really easy on us.
Yeah, no, I get that, man. I mean, it's like that at my place too. So, can you talk? Can you talk a little bit about, maybe from the science side of why it's important you train and then you stop training? Why is it important from a science side? Why is it important to keep the training going?
Your body atrophies after 72 hours, so it decreases in strength after 72 hours. So, and then on the power side, your body stops after, even I think it's 36 hours or even less than that. So if you're not training power, you're not training strength for, let's say, maximum 72 hours, you're starting to lose it. So imagine all those 72 hours time cycles throughout the season where you're not training strength because you don't apparently have time. You're going to, decrease your strength. Therefore, you're going to decrease your stability. Therefore, you're going to increase your chance of injury. Nice. So, we want to be sure that these kids understand that, if you go 72 hours without working out, once in a while, yeah, we do need deload weeks. We do need time off. We do need X, Y, and Z. But at the same time, you need to be doing something. You throwing and you hitting isn't gonna do it. That's the same patterns that got you hurt in the first place. Let's address, why you got hurt, or let's, hopefully decrease chance of injury by increasing stability and increasing strength.
Yeah, that's interesting. Man, I don't think I knew that. So that's interesting. So let's talk about Tommy John. I talked to a guy last week, and I learned a lot about that process.
Okay.
And what I learned mainly was that it's not just a smooth process and everything's going to feel great and everything goes well. Just because you had the surgery, So can you talk a little bit about the training side of the Tommy John recovery?
Yeah, absolutely. It's not the surgery that makes you throw harder. It's the rehab that makes you throw harder.
Right.
So, people need to realize that if you want to throw harder, do the same rehab that you're going to be doing for TJ, right? You're crushing your legs. You're working increased core stability. You're working on your scap. You're working on your cup. You're working on your elbow. You're working on all those little things that you should have been doing in the first place. Obviously we cannot prevent somebody from getting UCL surgery, but we can, kind of see precursors of it. If you're throwing 98 miles an hour, it's a matter of when it's going to happen at this point. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, as long as you're strong, as long as you're, focusing on proper movement efficiency, you're going to be set up for, a little bit longer career than the guys that just kind of go out, have a soda, have a beer, with their buddies and don't really get in the weight room. So, it's not, like I mentioned before, it's not the surgery. It's the way you approach the rehab. It's how the rehab's done. So it's the attention to the small detail during that rehab process that's actually allowing guys to have this success after surgery. And people need to understand too, that the surgery is not a guaranteed 100% success rate, so we only see these nowadays. It's pretty high, but we only see these positive stories versus all the negative stories of high school kids that are too weak or they get surgery again or whatever it may be.
Yeah. So one last question before I let you go.
Okay.
The younger guys who have the growth plate that's open, can you explain to people why that isn't such a big of a deal that they're kind of making it out to be, on the training side of things?
That's the time we want to attack it. That's when their growth plates are open. That means we can, we're going to get a little bit more out of it. We'll be able to create some strength from, just like I said from earlier, just looking at the squat rack, So, as long as we're creating what's called end range stability and we're creating joint stability, we're going to be set. It doesn't really change too much. We'll with our 10-year-olds, 11-year-olds, we'll load them up. You got to think that these kids carry heavy backpacks to school every day, books in their bags. Right. They're carrying their bat bag to the field. They're swinging. They're throwing. They're doing all these max intent exercises. But why are we only teaching them plyometrics when essentially you need to have strength and stability before you're able to teach plyometrics? So it's kind of a negative, perception where kids shouldn't be lifting weights because they're growing or because they're in puberty or because whatever it may be. You know, I think those times are kind of changing finally.
Yeah.
But
they're still out there though.
Yeah. And I get emails where, you know, hey, how can I get my 9-year-old involved in your strength program? It's more like, well, just go let them play sports and, you know, have fun, and we can, you know, maybe address it next year when he's 10. But like, you know, let's just, you know, teach him how to squat. Let's teach him how to do a push up, and then teach him how to play on the playground on the monkey bars. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that's kind of, you know, where I look at it with that stuff.
Well, DJ, you know, I know you got a busy day. I got a busy day too, and hopefully I can get you back on. You know, there's some other stuff that I'd love to talk about, and I'd love to ask you, but I do appreciate you coming on and talking to my people.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you. All right. Thank you.